All right. Hey, Dr. Ocean. Hello, subscribers. We're back with Dr. Ocean for our first Hey Girl chat that's attached to our newsletter. This is just super informal. It's unfiltered, it's raw. We just pick a topic and we go off about it. I think Dr. Ocean's going to be a guest here frequently on these Hey Girl chats because we are actually friends and we have Hey Girl moments like 3 times a week. So in the spirit of that, though, I thought today we could talk about the podcast centers around friendship and community and leveling up and opting out of struggle. As you know, you were on some episodes. So I thought it would be fun and funny to talk about the evolution of our friendship, how we kind of met. We met at work, just for everyone to know, and our first impression. So I think the first thing to go with is like, Jeanette, what you think about me when you met me? And I'll set the stage real quick. So we both worked at this agency, and I met Jeanette. She was working with like leadership, and I was one of the leadership team, but she was important to important position in leadership as well. And we kind of were circling around each other, and then we got to chat. So let's take it from there so people at least understand where we're starting from, and then give like where you were when we first met, like connecting and first impressions, and I will do the same, and then we'll kind of take it off. We'll take off from there.
Well, first let me say, hey girl.
Hey girl. Welcome. I told you I'm in struggle land. I'm literally looking at, not that I want everyone to be looking at my eyebrows, and I'm like, girl, you need to do something today. But Hey Girl Chats is informal. That's the whole point. It's not meant to be polished.
Yes. So hey girl, hey. Hope you're doing great today. How did we meet, or my first impressions when we met? As you mentioned, we kind of circled around each other. We were in the same rooms, and it's kind of like, it's not a lot of us who look like us.
No.
So I wonder what she's like, what she's about. And you were always pleasant and great at your job, and a lot of people respected you in the room. So that also was a thing that I thought like, maybe she's someone to get to know. But over time, as we started talking and talking more, because we were in the same rooms, I remember we used similar language. Like we talked about, like I remember the first time you used the word abundance, and I was like,
yeah,
what she know about abundance?
What you know about the A word?
Yeah, what you know about the A word and joy. And then we started talking about like, what we do outside of work and joy and being restful and all these things. And I was like, oh my God, she's wonderful. Like she really gets it. Like she gets it. And I remember later on telling you, I was like, for a while, even though I thought you were great and there were all these great things you were showing, I was like, is she a spy? Like, who is she really? Like, this is too good to be true. Like, is she just here to get all my information in the position that I'm in and go back and tell people things? Like, anyway, so I had to kind of get over that. But those were like my first impressions. I always thought you were great and lovely and delivered, like you, as we know in the rooms we were in, lots of leadership, but very few leaders.
Yes.
And so you actually demonstrated qualities of leadership. And from there it's been history.
I know, it was history. So I feel like similarly, I will say like, first I will say where I was in like my journey at the job and my feelings, because it intersects directly with like my impressions of you. So like you said, I was in a position of leadership, and I was in rooms where I was like, there's just not a lot of people of color, period, and very few women of color that were leading departments or doing anything. And at the same time, I felt, even though there were at least some people in the room, I really still felt very only there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't identify or really connect. And in some cases, some of those folks, not all of them, I had adversarial relationships. We were just not cool. We were not cool with each other on top of it all, right? And so I was in a space of feeling really kind of alone in the room, and feeling like, I mean, I'm used to that, but it was kind of like, oh, this is just another space where I'm alone. And so you, like, my first impression of you and we talked about this on the podcast in the episode.
Yes.
You talked about your struggle with visibility and invisibility and all those things, and how we had very opposite. So my first impression of you, long story short, was I was like, I mean, Jeanette seems nice and all, but like people were telling me Jeanette's amazing. Jeanette's amazing. I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to argue she's not amazing, but like she don't talk. And literally there are times when we'd be on a meeting. I'm like, is Jeanette on the meeting? And it's like it's only 2 people. I'm like, it's only 3 of us. Where's Jeanette at? Jeanette's there looking fly, but not like so quiet and so like contained that I don't even know she's on the call, and there's only 3 boxes to stare at. So that was my first kind of, I always thought you were good at your job. You seemed efficient. We'd met a couple of times. You seemed efficient. And then we started talking, and I was also in this space in my life where I was like, I really want to like help and connect with Black women. And I'm just going to like put it all out there who I am and see who responds and see what's happening. It can't get no worse. Like, so we'll you know, I'll just be myself. And so my first impressions of you beyond that. So there's first like, where's Jeanette at?
Where's she at?
And then, oh, there she is. There she is. All right. Hey, Jeanette. Beyond that was once we actually got to talk one-on-one with no one else in the room, I just remember thinking, I kept talking to somebody who was like a mentor who'd retired and left and be like, Jeanette's a real one. There's just, she's a real one. I just kept saying that over and over again. Like there were so few people that I had engaged with, even women of color, that I thought we had similar ideas. We had similar life, like not even life experiences, more so like just professional desires and personal desires. Like we had life outside of work and outside of really struggling. Like we were laughing about the fact that there's like a lot of nonsense at work, but we were able to shift to like what other things we were doing. And then I just saw like how expansive you really are, like how many things you were doing, how brilliant you are, how calm you are, and like put together and polished. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like this woman is such a hidden treasure. One of this organization, I heard you too, girl. And also just in life, like I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely someone who I want to get to know. And then we kind of grew from there. And to the point, like we became our own community. Yeah. And the thing I think that a lot of Black women will maybe understand is, it's like we became like undercover friends at work.
Yes. We be chatting all day in the chats offline.
And like, don't let nobody know we're friends. Like that became the first thing that happened. 2 things happened. I'm like, oh, we're actually connected. Like Jeanette gets it. She's a real one. Somebody I want to connect with. Immediately let no one else know in any way, shape, or form that we like each other and that we get along. Like that was just like, it wasn't that we couldn't be nice to each other, but that was so critically important, which was also like simultaneously really sad. Yeah. That's the way we could survive. Because I knew if people knew that we were connected and too friendly, any advocacy work you were doing on behalf of the work that I do, anything that I was doing would be sabotaged. Because it would be broad stroked with like,
oh yeah, you guys are just friends. So you're making that decision because you're friends. Also, I think for me personally, I wanted to protect it. Like, yes, I agree that it was kind of sad not being able to be open, but then a part of me was also like, this is my gym that I get, and my, like treat of the day is that I get to send these funny memes to my friend and coworker, right? So yeah, it was bittersweet, but then I also often felt like at least I get to work with someone I enjoy. So
yes, I felt the same too. Yeah, it was both. It was like, don't let nobody, that was part of it. That was really the undercurrent. It was like, it was beyond like, obviously we couldn't get the things we wanted to get done, or maybe less impactful, which about impact at certain work. But I will say that the other piece was like, I don't want someone to taint this. Yes. And access, letting people know that meant that like someone who I also similarly thought was a gem would not, somehow I was afraid it would be taken away or ruined in some way if people also knew about it. So I agree. Yeah. And so for community, like I think too, like our friendship and building community, like I think a lot of times people think, obviously community requires people, but it starts also with like one person, or it can start with a person, that I think we also mistakenly think community is like 100 you
Yes.
know, the a million woman march, right? And those things are community, but I think we often overlook that community sometimes is like one or two people that
Yes.
you have that become like your safe space. And I think for you as well, at work you became a safe space, which was really important, and then as that kind of blossomed and we talked more, you became a safe space out of work as well.
Yes. Oh, I'm like, again,
Jeanette gonna
hearts.
cry.
I
Jeanette's the
know.
crier of the two of
I,
us,
I am definitely a crier, and
which I
it's
love
weird.
about you.
It's so weird because I don't consider myself a crier, but somehow I've become a crier, and especially around you. Like I cried last night. We were talking, and I cried. Anyway, but no, that speaks to the whole point of community and being a safe space. And I think when we were working together, a lot of times that looked like, oh, let's grab tea, right?
Yeah.
And, I thought that was really helpful too, because you sit at your desk and you do work. I found myself in particular like eating at my desk and just being able to say, like, let's go get tea and physically move my body from
Yeah.
like being in one space. Um, and I like to do those things. And I found like, oh, people are always like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, I really don't want to, because I mean, I appreciate you, but I don't really like you like that. So
Right.
it was nice to have someone that I, like, and it's enjoyable. And then you find yourself, like you said, building community. I'm one who says, like, you find your people and you take them with you.
Yeah.
And I think that for you and I, immediately it was like, I don't care what happens, I'm taking her with me. Like, I don't
Yes.
care what position it is, like, we will be in each other's lives. So, yeah, just going back to your point about building community and what that looks like. And I think we've both now have built even an extended
Yeah.
community. And all that you're doing with this podcast, this is even more community for women overall who are experiencing burnout. So thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you, Jeanette. But yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, I think that's the thing too. Is like one of the things that's really great is when you meet people like on your journey, no matter where they are, is that being able to like expand that dynamic. Like we started obviously at work, and then we moved into life discussions. And for me, the concept of just safe space is
Yeah.
that's something that's as a therapist obviously was like built in me. I want to provide that for the people who came and saw me for their mental health needs, but just in my life that became so critically important. And being able to have that with people is one rare, but I think Black women can do that exceptionally well when we pick the right people, let's be
Yes.
clear. But I
Yes.
think we do that really well. And I think, like you said, safe space is sometimes just a cup of tea in the middle of the day where you're like, girl, this is what happened. But
Yeah.
it's also a space where you feel like you can cry with someone and it feels safe, that you're not going to be like, it's not going to ruin a friendship or be overly judged or anything like that. I've also, at least I've one time cried with you, but that is big because I'm not a
Yes.
crier.
I actually, I when we
I know because
when
it's rare.
yes, I actually recalled, because I was talking about last night I cried, and I was like, after I said that, I was like, oh, I remember that one time Kelley did cry with me.
I did. I was getting email about my brother. I got like all sad about like
I
something to
remember.
do with like high school, and I was like getting all emotional. It was woo. I said, Kelley, we going through it today. This is from like 1994. That's really where you went back to get tears. But I felt safe too. Like that's the
Yes.
point. Like I felt safe enough to have that, and safe enough too. Like I have been really, I think, transparent, if not in this podcast, with you in general about my struggles with my own having to be vulnerable and having to be, when you provide safe spaces for others, the last place you get into the habit of not demanding that for
Yeah,
yourself.
for yourself. Yeah.
And so for me, it has been a journey for me being, and past trauma, and I think a lot of people can identify with that, letting walls down to be safe. And I think for you and I, one of the things that has been great about our connection is I've been able to model vulnerability and speak up and say things that I traditionally would never do. that I would
Yeah.
just be like, okay, just don't say anything, and not in a bad way. Like there's nothing bad that we've had, but just as far as advocating for me about the language I use around myself, about what's going on in my life. Like I've been a person who's traditionally been much more reserved, just
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. And yeah, I think also for me, I vulnerability has been something that it is my life work, right? Like
Yeah,
just over time learning to um, like you said, bring down those walls. And as I previously mentioned, meeting you, I was like, she's too good to be true.
yeah,
Like I by default was like, she is planted here. She just wants to steal information. Like, that's how wild my mind went. Um, but yeah, I think vulnerability is absolutely a continuous journey. And I think for me too, something that I've learned in our friendship and something that I hold so dear and true is the ability to be joyous and share goodness with you. And
yeah,
that's something that I was really missing and didn't necessarily know that I was missing that. And it's like you have friends over time, and there's the good and the bad, the ups and downs. And after a while, I was finding in some friendships, like, it's always the bad, right? Like, and we often form these friendships out of survival, and we often, feel like a friend is there for you when you're going through something tough or bad. That is a testament of how good the
yeah,
friendship is. And with you, like, I was so excited because I was like, wow, we get to share joy together. We get to share goodness. We get to share our journeys as professionals. And, as you mentioned, like, I was doing so much out of work. You were doing stuff out of work. And something else that I loved about us is we became transparent even around finances, and like,
yeah.
I'm getting paid X amount to do this engagement. Getting paid X amount to do this engagement. And just having that level of transparency and excitement and joy around the work that we're doing. And that means so much to me. And I think that it is one of the beautiful things about our friendship, right? That we can be there for each other, for support, for goodness, for joy. And it's not just I'm there for you when you had a bad day. Like, I'm there for you to cheer you on, to be your biggest fan, your biggest cheerleader, your biggest supporter when you have a good day. And that just feels great.
Yeah, I think first of all, that was as usual beautifully said, and I do agree. Like I think I'm now learning as I get older and I'm on my own journey that actual vulnerability is less about the bad things and more about the
Hmm.
safety to share the good.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times, particularly as Black women, I don't know that that's everyone's experience and anywhere else, and I don't pretend to know, but I know for Black women there is a comfort and an expectation that there's going to be tough times and there's going to be challenges, but there isn't always an expectation. We don't think about the friends
Hmm.
that we can share goodness with. We think
Yes.
about the litmus, like the measurement of a good friend is who's there for you at 3 a.m. You
Yep.
know, when you're like, are you going to be my call to get out of jail? Are you going to be the person that rides
Yep.
for me and tells me what's going on, or this crisis happened? And less about, is that the same person that you can also say, this amazing thing happened. I met an incredible person. I got a promotion. I got whatever. Like, this opportunity fell in my lap. I never thought about friendship in that way. And I also never thought about the fact that I think a lot of things that you helped me to do is you don't get friendship if you can't give. And what I
Mhm.
realized is I had imbalanced friendships for a long
Mhm.
time because I didn't give of myself, neither on the good or the bad. I felt guilty talking about the good because I was like, oh, this person's struggling. They're not trying to hear
Yeah.
that I did
Yep.
this thing or won this award or I did well in school or whatever that was, right? There was that piece, but then there was also just the part of not feeling safe or not working on my own stuff to be able to
Mhm.
show up to share either spectrum. Like I didn't share the good because I was like, oh, they're not going to be prepared to hear it. And then
Yeah.
also just my own issues around goodness. Like I was still
Mhm.
struggling to accept that goodness was happening in my life and
Yep.
something worth talking about and sharing, that I was holding back on sharing goodness. Not even because the person couldn't receive it. They might have been like, I would have loved to hear this. And that would happen frequently. Like, why didn't you tell me about this? Like this is great. I was holding back because I need to do my work to be deserving of
Mhm.
feeling comfortable enough to say, hey, this great thing happened to me in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I think that was one of the something that came out of our friendship, just realizing that it's like, yeah, I do have the friends who I could call at 3 a.m. and be like, well, I don't foresee me saying bail me out of jail, but
Me neither.
I've had I have had the friends who was like, oh, I lost my key. Can
Right.
you come open my door since you have my spare key and it's 2
Right.
a.m.? And they'll be
Right.
there. But then that same friend, I maybe couldn't share something exciting and good because of the guilt. Like, oh, this person is going through this thing, so I can't, and I don't want to say this thing, right? And but anyway, I'm grateful for that. I think that was something that I didn't realize was missing in some of my friendships, and so I'm grateful that through our connection, I was able to just have that safe space. And like, it's nice to be with a friend where both of you are like leveling up and expanding
Yeah.
together, and we're both at this stage in our lives where we are, in your words, ready for the more,
Yeah.
and even more.
Yes. Yes. You quote me, girl. That's right. That's what we're doing. I'm dropping gems. I hope everyone's collecting them. No. No, I was actually thinking something very similar that I I had been in a point. I think it also matters at the point in your life as you who you are is who you attract, and where
Mhm.
you are in your journey is where you attract. And so I had, prior to meeting you, I had kind of lost a lot of friendships as I had rebalanced my life. Like I had said, okay, I don't want one-sided friendships. What does that mean for me then? Like
Mhm.
what personal inner work do I have to do to make sure that I have the more and the more and the still more in my life? And so that led me to leaving people behind, which was bittersweet because some of those people had
Yeah.
been incredible in crisis and just they're incredible humans. Like I love them as people, but couldn't give me, I went on this journey I told you about, like looking for reciprocity in my relationships. Like I really felt like it was so important that I'm a generous person and I know that about myself, but then I could sit with getting generosity put
Mm.
back into me, right? And so we met on this very same time where we were both in a place of leveling up, and the like pain point was losing some folks that
Yes.
are incredible humans, but the benefits to me of that process was that I got more, like I got better quality
Mhm.
friends that I could that helped me grow as a person. I think you've helped me grow as a person, and has helped me kind of do more of my work and show up as a better version of myself. And I don't know how that plays out for you, but that's how it played out
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, the same. Absolutely the same. I'm Yeah, we talk about this all the time, like
All right, yeah.
the growing pains of what it looks like to level up. And just last night we had this conversation about like the letting go of people and spaces and places. Again, the opting out, right? How it's continuous and it's not just one thing, it's you keep doing it. And then, I said this before, you apply it first to your professional life and you say, okay, now I can set these healthy boundaries at work. But then it's like your personal life, and now there's people. And, what I'm learning is the people are just being who they are, and they're
Yes.
existing the way they have always existed. It's now that I'm shifting. Some people don't fit anymore, right? Going
Yeah.
back to the uncomfortable clothes, when you just outgrow your clothes. And in real life, when I outgrow clothes now, I'm no longer like, oh, let me save it to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah. No.
Because I could lose. What happens is I can lose 10 pounds and it still is, they don't fit because I don't, no, seriously, I don't even look the same at 10 pounds like I
Right.
did the last time I was 10 pounds. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
things shift so much. So it's like, why wait? Why save? Like, give it to someone who is actually in need of it, right? And so that's where I'm at now in my life, where it's like people don't fit. It's not just the clothing, it's the people, it's positions, it's spaces. But in your, like you said, you get more. You get more people who are more of a fit for who you are and where you're going in life.
Yeah, and it's the letting go that can be difficult. I think, especially for women, like we are such loyal people
Hmm.
that I had to like think about and rename the letting go, right? Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm breaking up. I mean, I've had friends who break up, clear, but that's very different than what I had to do with a lot of the people, right? It didn't have to be all that. It didn't have to be like some dramatic conversation where it sounds
Yeah.
like you're breaking up with a romantic partner. It's like, nah, you don't fulfill my, no, you don't feel, you're gone. Don't call me no more. Like it didn't have to get to
Yep.
that point at all with folks. It just became this whole thing of I really subscribe to loving people from a distance, and the way
Mhm.
I could make a break with that, I don't have to love them any less. I don't have to not love person X. I just need to love them with space between us. Like I
Yes.
don't need you to be in my most vulnerable parts of myself because you can't honor that, and it's not because you're a bad person, you're just not in a place to be able to receive that.
Yep.
And so if I can't tell you my goodness, which is like a litmus test I have for myself now I'm like, if I
Yes.
can't
Me
tell you
too.
goodness, then I need to love you from a distance. And I still get to love you the same amount of I've always loved you, but that in action means that you're not, I'm not calling you every day. We're not hanging out every
Yeah.
moment. I'm loving you from a space that still allows me to show up in your life,
Yes.
but still protects myself and allows myself to keep growing and moving on in my journey.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Yes, that is my yeah, that's the journey I'm on now. It's like, yeah, loving people from a distance. And you hear it all the time, but then like you said, like what does that actually look like? And it can look different from person to person, right? Like there's not one way of loving someone from a distance. It could, like you said, literally be we don't talk as often, we don't hang out as much, but guess what? Birthday and holiday, I could show up. Outside of that, I'm not sure.
Right. Catch my voicemail. No, it's true though. I mean, at some point you have to have that conversation, but that's also part of opting out. Like, I, I had, when you have scarcity mindset, you want to keep everyone and everything. And I always
Mhm.
subscribe to like Iyanla, who said like people are there for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And when you're stuck in like struggle and like scarcity, you're like, I can't let this person go. I have to keep them. I have to keep
Yeah.
them. And it's like, okay, but are they a reason or a season person? Like that,
Yeah.
maybe they could be. There's not going to be a ton of people who are going to be lifetime people. And again, it doesn't change your love for them. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you don't love them. I think it's not a choice. That's not a choice you have to make. It's just like when you're in scarcity, you hold. Like you said, you keep the
Yes.
clothes, being like, I'm going to get back in these jeans. Okay, sure. And like you said, you may never get back in them jeans, or you might lose 20 pounds and still can't fit in the jeans because your
Exactly.
hips is still like, my behind's still too big for these pants. So it's like this mentality of loss. And I think as black women, we've had so much cultural
Loss.
loss
Yeah.
that we want to hold, and we
Yeah.
tend to do that. We hold on even when the people are like kicking us to try to get free. We're like, no, let's be friends forever, instead
Exactly.
of doing the journey and knowing that people will meet you. Like I feel like, because I was going to ask you like, what's your piece of advice for people? I will say mine because I already started blabbering about it, and then let you say yours as we close. But I feel like if that's the thing, it requires a lot of friendship, and community requires a measure of faith, and it
Mm.
requires a measure of faith in yourself. But to believe in the fact that if you show up and you do your work, that you will meet people, that it may be lonely to level up initially and it may be
Yeah.
difficult on the journey, but that there's more waiting. Like people will be there on the journey. You will never have to be alone. Even
Yes.
if you have to let go of people, I have never been alone,
Yes.
ever. There's always been someone there, a mentor, a family member, a friend. And so if you are struggling and you're like, I want to go on this journey, I want to have this friendship that, I want to have something like that suits my life, and you might need to let go of folks, know that you will never, ever, ever be alone on that journey if you're doing the work to get there, whatever there is for you.
Yeah.
What about for you? What would be your piece of closing advice for folks?
Oh, that was so good. That's a good one. No, I totally agree with that. I guess the only thing I would add to that in terms of one about the letting go, when you have to question if you have to let someone go, it's probably the sign to let the person go.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learned on the journey. Like sometimes, and I'm going to be just very personal. I used to say to myself, like, well, because I'm so analytical, like, I'm a scientist, so I'd like to rationalize and experiment and play all these scenarios out. And then I realized, Jeanette, no. If you have to spin your wheels, you have your answer.
Yeah.
The answer is no. Like, you don't want someone to bring confusion into your life. I am a very clear person. I know, who I am, what I want. And so why am I allowing someone or engage, or why am I allowing like someone to engage in confusion with me, right? And so I guess the advice that I would say is trust yourself. Like, you know yourself better than anyone else. And you don't have to rationalize your feelings. No one has to validate them. You know who you are and how you want to be treated. It obviously starts with the self work of treating yourself well, loving yourself, and so that you can understand how that shows up in other people around you. So, on this journey of leveling up and finding good friendships, before you can trust someone else, you have to trust yourself. So trust that you are enough to have something healthy, and you are enough to make good decisions for yourself. And if that means letting go of people, you can trust that you are right in your feelings and your emotions and your experiences, and more is waiting for you.
I love snaps for that. So I can't actually. I'm not even snapping. There we go. Yeah, I can snap. Where's my speakers at? Yes, all of that, and yeah. As we close out our first kind of chat, I'm like, hey, girl. If you're out
Hey,
there, go
girl.
out there and build your community. And if you are really fortunate, you will have a friend as lovely as Dr. Ocean, aka Jeanette Davis. So thank you. I hope y'all enjoyed this. There'll be more. We're going to be going through a lot. Like the Hey Girl Chats is going to be evolving because
Yes,
I love talking about all kinds of things. So we're going to have to do like Hey Girl Chat on a TV show at some point because we,
absolutely.
we, we do love our shows. We'll connect. We have different styles. But every once in a while we find a show we like and then we dissect it. So more to come. Everyone, have a great day.
Hi, guys.